Hi everybody, I'm Gwen and welcome to At Home with Gigi. Thank you so much for being here today. Are you interested in seeing how I made these beautiful DIYs using tissue paper and Dollar Tree signs? Then you've come to the right place. But first, I want to show you the wonderful items that Tami from Happiness Created sent to me for this mystery challenge. So stick around. Part of the requirements for this mystery challenge is we had to open our package on camera and then we had to use the tissue that they have designated for us to use. And Tami was so very kind and sent me all of these other beautiful items. Thank you so much, Tami. I appreciate it and I cannot wait to use these in other DIYs. I just love these farmhouse stickers. Thank you again so much. And then this is the beautiful tissue that she sent. I did not see where it was designated, Tami, which ones I was supposed to use. So I chose 3 of them and I hope that I chose the correct ones. And I just thank you again so much for this beautiful tissue. And I've never used tissue to decoupage with before, so I cannot wait to show you what I've created. Now let's get started. For this DIY, we're going to use some of this tissue that came from Tami, a mason jar sign from the Dollar Tree, and the pumpkins that I have laying there, we changed that up just a little bit, and I'll tell you more about that later. I have already sanded down the front of the sign and removed that burlap strip, and now I'm just adding a coat of the Waverly chalk paint and plaster. I'm going to let that dry completely before I add my second coat. And as I was telling you earlier, I am a part of the Tissue Paper Mystery Exchange today, and it's hosted by Lisa at Lovin's The Life, and her co-host is Karen at the Loft Home Decor. And I received my tissue from Tami at Happiness Created, and I sent my tissue to Karen, the co-host, today. And guys, I am so excited to be a part of this playlist. Everybody's channels and the playlist will be down in the description box. Make sure you go and click on that link and go check out everybody's video. They are just wonderful, wonderful ladies. And if you're here from the playlist, welcome, thank you. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for being here. I appreciate it so much. Once my paint was completely dry, I'm going in and adding a pretty generous layer of Mod Podge, and I'm just making sure it's really smooth, no lumps and bumps, because I'm going to let that dry completely before I attach my tissue paper. For the body of my jar, we're going to be using this speckled or like tiny polka dot tissue paper, and I'm just measuring out the amount that I'm going to need and just cut it down to size where it's a little more manageable. Now, you don't have to use tissue. This is a tissue challenge, so using tissue, but anyway, you can just leave it painted or whatever might be the case. I'm just placing it across the top of the jar because I want to make sure I have a nice clean straight line, because I'm going to be adding more tissue paper at the top to make it look like it has a lid. And I am going to be using a little bit of tape just to hold that paper in place, because every time I put the wax paper on top, it kept moving my tissue paper around because it's just so very thin. And then I'm just placing the wax paper over the top because we're using the iron-on method. And you just very gently run it over that wax paper and it reactivates the Mod Podge. And it gives you such a wonderful, clean, smooth finish. And I just love it. It is just so easy. But make sure your iron is on the lowest setting. And this is the tissue paper I'm going to be using for the lid. I found this at Hobby Lobby and I was like, oh my goodness, that's going to be perfect for the lid for my mason jar. And again, I'm using Scotch tape just to tape it on each side of the tissue paper just to make sure it's not going to move. And y'all, to me, it came out perfect. I love how it joined. It couldn't have been more perfect. I was like, oh, the stars are aligned. Thank you, Jesus, all the above. It came out so perfect because I struggle sometimes when I'm Mod Podging and doing things like this because I'm not good at lining things up. But anyway, it came out great and I was so, so happy. And again, I'm just very gently running the iron over that wax paper and just smoothing it out. And I'm going very, very slowly. This is sped up. But it just, oh my gosh, I love the finish that it gives. And as you can see, it was just perfect. And I'm just using my sanding block to go around and just very gently sand off the excess tissue paper, but just do it very gently and sand away from your project because this tissue paper is very delicate and it will tear on you. This is where I changed the pumpkins up just a little bit. I thought this side needed a little bit larger pumpkins, and this came from a garland that I picked up from Walmart last year at the end of the season when they were clearancing everything out. And I did fill in the holes at the top where the string was through there with some spackling from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm just giving it a coat of the Waverly white chalk paint. Once my paint was completely dry, I'm just adding a layer of Mod Podge and this beautiful blue tissue. And oh my gosh, I thought it was just so beautiful. I know it's a little different to add to your pumpkin, but I thought it was just so beautiful and I knew I wanted to use it somehow. And I'm just smoothing it down with the cling wrap, and it really does help to smooth it down and help get out some of the lumps and bumps. And this came out, I mean, really, really well. I had very, very little wrinkling. As you can see, I originally painted the pumpkin white, but it just did not look right under this tissue because it was so sheer. So I went back and mixed together Lagoon and white from Waverly chalk paint. And y'all, the color, as you can see, it is almost an exact match. It was just so beautiful. And once I let that dry and I put the Mod Podge on there and let that dry and added the tissue, I mean, you could not tell the difference between the paint and the tissue. I thought it was just beautiful. You'll have to tell me what you think. I'm just using Gorilla Hot Glue to attach my pumpkins and the Hello Fall sign, but if you want something that is more permanent, you're more than welcome to use E6000 or Gorilla Gel Glue. But I've never had any issues with having the Gorilla Glue not hold and keep things in place. Guys, I have lost some of the footage of the next little bit of things that I'm going to show you, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, I'm just attaching my little pumpkins, just staggering them there on the front. And this little Hello Fall sign, I picked that up last year from the Dollar Tree whenever they had those little packet. I think it was like 5 or 6 little faux wooden signs. And I just painted that with Waverly's ink chalk paint. I decided to go back in and add a couple of more loops of this black string around the neck of my mason jar. I'm not sure why I only added 1 to begin with, and I was like, no, it needs a couple more because I like to do things in 3. But anyway, I believe this string came from Amazon. I've had it for a long time, and this stuff frays so bad. So that's why I'm wrapping the tape around the ends, just to stop it from fraying. All that's left to do is just pop on this bow that I made, and this ribbon came from Walmart last year, and I think it just turned out beautiful. I love these colors together. I know it's a little unusual, a little different, but sometimes I like unusual, I like different. But you're just going to have to tell me what you think about the colors together. For this project, we're going to be using this pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, and I'm only going to use the flower tissue for this project. I'm not going to use the pink. And I decided I was going to pull that raffia bow off because I was going to stain the pumpkin and then paint the little 3D dimensional parts white. And it was this huge lump of hot glue there that just would not budge. So I broke out my blow dryer because it's very, very powerful. And whenever I was softening up the hot glue, some of the little 3D cutouts started coming loose. I'm like, well, I'll just pop those off. It'll make it easier to add the tissue to that. Where it was a little bit more of a project than what I had anticipated. So I enlisted the help of the honey, and I held the blow dryer, and he just helped me pry them and pop them off so I wouldn't break them because they are very, very flimsy. And then I sanded them down really well, and I'm just adding a layer of the Waverly chalk paint in white. While that was drying, I decided to go ahead and stain the pumpkin, and that was easier said than done because there was like a waxy coating on there that evidently I did not sand hard enough to get off. And as you'll see in just a moment, whenever I wipe the stain off, with the baby white. And if I didn't say it before, I'm using the last bit of the folk art antiquing wax mixed with some water. But anyway, the stain just wiped right off. And I was like, what in the world? And as you can see where the hot glue was, it just absolutely did not take the stain. So I went back in and I sanded it down really good again, but I still ended up having to use like 2 or 3 layers of the antiquing wax, and I'm just using it directly, what was there on the top of the bottle, I'm just using that. But the little cutouts are going to go back on top, so I wasn't too worried about it as long as the parts that were showing had the color that I was looking for. And I'm just going to add a layer of Mod Podge to each of the pieces, and I've already cut the tissue down to where it would be manageable to put it on there, because I want to try to get it on there with as little wrinkling as possible. After letting them dry completely, I just went in with a sanding block and then just very gently just sanded around the edges, and that tissue paper just came right off. And I'm just using more Gorilla hot glue and just attaching the cutouts back to the front of the pumpkin. I did have to hold them down just a little bit to make sure that they were on each end going to really stick to the front of that pumpkin. I'm just making a quick messy bow, just using a variety of ribbon that I had on hand and just using colors that I thought that would complement the tissue paper that I had used for the pumpkin. And it is a huge bow. I don't know what I was thinking, y'all. I think I made the lengths about 9 or 10 inches. I did have to cut it down quite a bit to make it fit and make it more proportion to the pumpkin. I had originally planned to add a little flower or something there in the center. I was like, nah, got enough flowers on the pumpkin, so I did go back and wrap twine around the center just to cover up that zip tie. And I'm just adding some hot glue and popping it on the top there just to cover up that spot that would not take much of the Waverly Antique wax. And I was like, it still needs something else. I always think that about my projects, so I did create a little handle. And I just mixed together some apple barrel white and red paint to get the color pink that I wanted to complement the pink flowers in the tissue paper. And then for the square beads, I used Waverly chalk paint in celery. And then just some other beads that I had on hand. And as you can see, I did not hot glue the handle on. I'm not sure why I didn't. Usually I do, but you can add a little hot glue back there just for a little extra security. And y'all, I just love how this turned out. I think it is so cute, and it is just different, and it's not your usual colors for fall, but I think it just works with the color combinations I've used. Let me know what you think. For this DIY, we're going to use 2 of the tag signs that came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to flip them over, and I'm going to give them 2 good coats of paint. And I have mixed up a color of paint that I thought would really complement the tissue that I'm going to be using. It is the plaster from Waverly chalk paint, and I also mixed in just a little bit of the burnt umber from Apple Barrel, and I just kept mixing it in just a little bit at a time until I got it to the color that I wanted. I just want to say thank you so much to my returning subscribers and to my new subscribers. I am almost to 600, and I am just so excited to hit that mark at 600, and then I'm on to my next goal. I want to get to 1,000, in the next couple of months. So if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and while you're down there, go ahead and smash that like button if you are enjoying my videos. If you're here from the playlist, welcome. I hope you like what you see and will decide to stick around. I let my paint dry completely, and then I went in and gave it a really good layer of Mod Podge, just making sure it was a smooth, even coat. I'm going to use this beautiful polka dot paper to cover this tag sign, and y'all have seen me use this method before, the iron and wax paper method, so I'm just going to kind of speed through this real quick. And for the other tag, I'm going to use a page out of this calendar that I got this year, and they have the most beautiful pictures in this calendar. But we're going to be using the sunflower. It says Our Happy Place, and I thought it was just so pretty. And I'm just going to center it up as best I can, and then just use the same method as I did with the polka dot tissue. And then again, just using my sanding block and just taking off the excess paper. I'm going to use these two washers that came from the hardware store. I think it was Lowe's. And not only is it giving it just a little extra detail, but it's also going to protect the rope that I'm going to use to hang the tag signs from rubbing against especially the tissue paper and making it fray or come loose. And I just marked off exactly where I wanted to put the hot glue on the back of my sign, because I'm not good at eyeballing things. And then I just put a really generous layer of the Gorilla hot glue on this. And you can use E6000 or some other type of glue, but I find that Gorilla hot glue sticks, they just work really, really well at holding things together. Then I'm just adding a little bit of rope that I had left over from another project, and I did wrap some tape around the ends just to make sure that it wasn't going to fray whenever I snipped off those extra ends. All that's left to do for this project is just pop on this little simple bow that I made from a variety of ribbon that I had on hand, and I just love the colors together on my tag sign, and I think this turned out so beautiful. Let me know what you think. Does it all work together? Guys, please don't forget to go check out the description box. It has all the links to everyone's channel and the playlist for this wonderful mystery challenge. You won't be disappointed. Thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope you'll take a moment to hit that subscribe button and like button. It sure would help my channel. And I thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.